Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for joining today. I'm Emma Maslen. I'm the CEO of inspir'em, and this is our MEDDIC Lives series. We're kicking off with some of the conversations around our blogs that we're having in our newsletters. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about how MEDDIC helps individuals and also leaders within the business. And today we're going to be talking about what's the difference between MEDDIC and MEDDPICC and what's right for your business. I'm delighted today to be joined by Sam Spark from one of our largest customers, Redgate, who we've been working with for nearly 5 years now, Sam. Can you believe it's been nearly 5 years, which is crazy. So very excited to have you here today. So how the webinar works, as I've mentioned before, what we'll do is we'll be asking Sam some questions around what he's been up to, what his background is, and how he's been using MEDDIC and MEDDPICC within the organization. And then we'll open up to questions, take some questions from the live audience that we have, and then the recording will be available on the platform following the sessions. Do go in and have a look at the platform. We've got some new guides, exercises, and ideas for you for implementing MEDDIC and MEDDPICC into your organizations. So feel free to have a click around after the webinar. So if we get started then, Sam, thanks very much for joining us. It would be really great to kick off to hear a little bit about you, your background, and you know, what was your journey with MEDDIC and MEDDPICC in the very beginning?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for having me, Emma. So it's great to be here. My name is Sam Spark. I am the Director of Sales of the EMEA for a company called Redgate Software. Redgate are a B2B software business. We sell we've got about 200,000 customers, and fundamentally we help them develop, deploy, monitor, and protect their databases. So Redgate have been going for about 25 years, with about 600 employees now. And we've been on this journey, especially over the last 10 years, where we've been going up market, quite a big commercial transformation, especially in the last 5 to 6. So MEDDPICC's been core to that journey. So day to day, though, I look after all the new license go-to-market teams that look after the EMEA market at Redgate, mainly based in Cambridge, our HQ in the UK. I've been at Redgate just under 10 years now. I hit my 10-year anniversary in October, which is very, very exciting.
No, that's great. And one of the great things I love about Redgate is the fact that everybody's been there forever. You just have the most amazing culture and tenure within Redgate. So you've seen all of these people come in really early in their careers, and then they've sort of, you know, gone up through the ranks. So that's fab. Great. So so maybe we could kick off by talking about, you know, what's been your journey around MEDDIC and MEDDPICC, and actually why did Redgate implement that in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So like thinking back, so it was probably 2018 when we started to have discussions about best practice qualification framework. So at the time, we were going through this quite large growth period. So we were starting to scale sales. We were mainly UK headquartered, and then we started to open more offices around the globe. So we opened offices in APAC, opening in Germany, and over in a couple more in the US. And one of the things that we realized then as we're doing some diagnosis around sales execution was different pockets around the business are using different types of qualification frameworks. So, you know, some teams are using BANT, some teams are using SPIN. There was a few of us in Cambridge that were starting to talk about this MEDDIC, MEDDPICC idea. I remember quite well, like the first time that I came across it as a tool was reading a blog post about how Zendesk was starting to be able to forecast within 1% of their number. And I was like, wow, you know, that's so far from where we are. We're so much less predictable than that. Like, you know, maybe that is the tool to use. And again, I started seeing it a lot more frequently referenced in other organizations, you know, the big companies like MongoDB and Snowflake. It was ingrained in their sales and in their sales organizations. So in 2018, we had this debate, these conversations started to happen, and ultimately we decided that MEDDPICC was the framework that we were going to use. So if you then jump into 2019, that was the year that we started to take it seriously. So I think we realized quite quickly we didn't have the internal expertise and knowledge. So we started working with inspir'em back then. You were the first third party that we brought in to engage with Redgate and basically come teach us about MEDDPICC, help us think about how we can embed it and scale it throughout the whole commercial organization. And that's really when our journey began. So thinking about how we actually started to make it happen, I think when we were thinking about what our sales process looked like, we were trying to think about how MEDDPICC should be applied throughout that sales process. So we started to think about how that's going to be reflected in things like Salesforce and those types of systems. And that was one of the most crucial things that we worked with inspir'em on. So how could we think about really embedding that in the day-to-day sort of world of a salesperson? So we started initially with some training, so training managers, training reps on, what MEDDPICC is, how we can use it as we go through the sales process. We then worked with inspir'em to build out a scorecard. So that scorecard was initially out of Salesforce, used in things like deal reviews. So we could try and get a pulse check on a deal and, how qualified it was. We then later worked with inspir'em and also our RevOps teams to actually implement that into Salesforce. That really was when I think we saw a critical mass of adoption, when it became embedded into the way that we expected people to work, and we were reflecting that in Salesforce. And then over the next couple of years, that journey sort of grew out of just sales across the whole of the organization. So if you look at us in 2024, MEDDPICC is now the consistent language that we use when we're talking about sales qualification. If you ask our exec or our peers in marketing, they'll understand what a champion is. They'll understand what an EBI is. And that's given us this common commercial language that we can talk about the state of the deal or our overall pipeline. And that's been really valuable. So it's been sort of evolution, not revolution. It took us a little bit of time initially in 2019, 2020, but it is now the de facto sales qualification framework that we use, and it's highly embedded into the way our sellers think and sound.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose just to add a few points to that. So it's interesting that you talk about the forecast accuracy point in the beginning. That's one of the big things that most of our customers see. And actually one of the challenges they face in the beginning, which is that they're struggling to understand why deals are falling out the forecast, struggling to understand why they're slipping. I think one of the great things that I've seen from Redgate's implementation is that you don't let slip deals go. So when deals slip, you have the review around MEDDIC, MEDDPICC to make sure that you actually understand, well, actually, why did that deal slip? So let's make sure that it doesn't slip again. So just having a good culture of some decent rigor following, a quarter slip so that you know what's happening. That's really great. You mentioned as well about the training of the leaders as well as part of this. I think one of the other really good tips that I've seen sort of from the Redgate implementation is this was never a one and done. It was you trained your team up, you got your leaders trained up, you then looked at the operations side of things, you keep evolving that, you keep refreshing that to make sure that everybody's using it and everybody's sort of following up with the ideas. So that's good.
And that reinforcement and training piece has been so important to us. So even if you look, 5 years later from when we first implemented MEDDPICC and started working with inspir'em, every year we still do MEDDPICC training, we still do MEDDPICC refreshers, and that's evolved now to MEDDPICC masterclasses. So this year you'll see us, is focusing on a particular area maybe where our reps are struggling, where we're diagnosing, we've still got some challenges, and we're really trying to hone on those areas for our more senior sellers. So how can we help them get much stronger at qualifying the metric? Like we've got quite a technical sales team, they're strong at implicating the pain, but they sometimes lack the metric why these organizations are actually going to make a change. So we will be constantly reviewing the sort of adoption, the health of our MEDDPICC knowledge in the organization, and then being tactical to where we can make a quick win, like with a masterclass. So that's been really, really valuable for us. Every new star that comes into Redgate goes through MEDDPICC training. We refresh everyone, not annually. And we're also tactically trying to make sure that we're doing stuff on top of that. So that's been really, really important to keep it fresh, to keep it top of mind for our sellers.
Yeah. And also give your leaders some ability to have time to go and do other things as well, sort of having that drumbeat go in the background so that your leaders can be thinking about the next expansion plan. No, that's great. Thanks. If anybody's got any questions, if you want to put them in the chat, we'll have some opportunity to take some questions live for Sam a little bit later on. So feel free to do that. So just following on from that then, Sam, so we released the blog earlier this week, which was MEDDIC, MEDDPICC. What's the difference and why choose 8 letters over 6? Be really great to get your perspective on specifically why you went for 8 letters.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking back, and these themes are still relevant now. So for us, there were 2 major drivers why we went for the 8 letters rather than the 6. The first being Redgate have been going on this journey from being a download drive iBender that you'll buy a $500 license on a credit card to working with some really significant enterprise customers and doing some really large deals. So we've been going on this process over the last 10 years, especially around going up market and doing larger deals. So for us, that's meant the paper process has been really important. So we might be working with a customer we've been doing, 10, 20, 30K deals with. And then that goes to a 100K deal value. And we were shocked that everything felt different. So helping people understand that constantly re-qualifying that paper process and how that might vary, a value bound change or a solution change, because InfoSec now, how to say, that's been really important for us, making sure that we can forecast accurately. And two, our sellers are in control of helping our customers navigate that process and making sure that, they're not getting frustrated on their side. So that paper process has been super important. If I think back 7, 8 years, we never did a custom ULO with the customer. It wasn't a problem, it was on someone's credit card. Those types of teams in their own clients weren't picking up on the fact that they needed to do that. Whereas now, when you're looking at much larger deal values, custom ULOs, MSAs, InfoSec requirements around security forms, it's consistent with every single deal we're doing, across multiple industries. So that evolution's been important for us, and making sure our salespeople are understanding that, qualifying that, scoring that, so that they understand and can control their deals. So that was one of the main pieces for us, that evolution of our sort of go-to-market team. The second is that we're in a highly competitive environment in our, the space that we sell into. So Redgate have got 4 core solution areas. Each of those has its own different competitors. So sellers really understanding what the current customer environment looks like, what the upcoming competition might be that we're competing against in, a new sale or an expansion. That's been really, really important for us. And the overarching theme that we'll often find is if there isn't a third-party competitor out there, the competitor's doing nothing. So for us, helping our sellers understand that, do nothing or a competitor is off the table, again, it helps us make sure that we're accurately forecasting these deals, or that the implicated pain of the metric is strong enough that we can make a customer commit to working with us. So those 2 factors for us were sort of no-brainers as we were doing the initial sort of evaluation of MEDDIC or MEDDPICC. And, we instantly, in 2019, went with MEDDPICC.
No, that's great. Great. Thanks for that. Yeah. And just to reinforce that as well, what we usually suggest to people is if they're getting started, we suggest that you might want to go MEDDPICC in the beginning, or MEDDIC in the beginning, 6 letters. Or if you do MEDDPICC, actually really focusing on M, I, and C in the beginning, get a really good foundation and then build up your other letters. It's usually a really lot for the team to consume. You're in a slightly different place because you've been evolving your journey now for some time. So actually there's a lot of support in the organization for understanding the nuances of all of the different letters, which really helps. The thing that we also see as well is that the extra letters, I truly believe that they've been added because at some point in time, there was some issue with some statement of work, paper process, some competitor that was missed. The idea of MEDDIC and MEDDPICC and all of the other spellings that there are is that it's essentially a safety net. So have you checked the things? Are you thinking about all of those different things? And again, going back to if you've got a young developing Salesforce that you're looking to mature over time, actually giving them a bit of a safety net with some great coaching questions helps them to then not miss anything. So yeah, that's great.
And that final point has been really crucial for us at Redgate. My journey has been one of professional development with Redgate. Again, I came in as a renewals representative, and I've had the opportunity to grow into the role that I'm in. But if you look at across our sellers now, the majority, I'd say 60% of those joined Redgate in inside sales or in XDR positions. And that means they've gone on that journey of growing their career from inside sales to SDR to BDR to AEs, all the way up to account director. So us helping them understand how their evolutions in the next role goes, MEDDPICC's been really important for doing that. Our SDRs will think about the M, the R, and the C at that early qualification part of their journey. And then as they're moving into an account executive position, we're trying to help coach them and help them understand how those next couple of letters are going to be really important in how they sell to our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So very much, again, just making sure that they've got all of that information. You keep coaching around that. No, that's great. Thanks, Em. So again, if anybody's got any questions, if you put it in the Q&A, then we'll pick that up in a second. So one question that I have for you, Sam, we like to try and give people some top tips. We've got some new MEDDIC adopters that are on the training that we have and on playback. So what are your top tips for keeping MEDDIC, MEDDPICC going in an organization? There's a lot you could do, but maybe are there a couple of silver bullets that you offer to people and say, look, if you're going to embark on this, start here?
So I think one of the biggest pieces of guidance I'd give to everyone thinking about this is it's not just something that you roll out in sales. If you can get the whole go-to-market motion and even the whole organization brought into this, it makes a huge difference. And then you get real critical mass and real adoption. So we actually had inspir'em train our marketing function on MEDDPICC so that when those two functions are working closely together, again, they've got that common language between teams. And also it's another forcing factor for, AE adoption. When you've got your marketing counterpart holding them accountable for, is your champion coming to this event? We're working on this proposal. Who's the EBI? What persona are they? What can we make? Like, how do we need to cater it to that individual? It's also just, this is not just a tool for your sellers. This is a tool for the whole, hierarchy within your commercial organization. Our CRO all the way down to our most new junior salespeople understand MEDDPICC and why it's important to our business. Again, so that means real common language. We're all on the same page when we're talking about forecasting or pipeline management. And that's made a huge difference to our adoption and I think success of MEDDPICC being rolled out. So that's number one. Don't just do it in the isolation of your sellers. So think about how you can bring the whole organization on the journey with you, especially marketing. That's a silver bullet. Make sure they're in the training, make sure that it becomes common language with them. And also top to bottom, everyone should be brought into this. And if your CRO is holding your sales leaders accountable, they're holding your frontline sales managers accountable, and the reps, again, everybody understands how valuable this is for winning more deals, growing revenue faster, and forecasting more accurately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. And we have a lot of customers who also cover customer success as well, to make sure that the handover of those champion economic buyers are very much, there is a proper baton holding and transfer that goes on, because quite often what happens is the salespeople do the deal and off they go, and then customer success are left picking up the pieces. And if there isn't that good handover and that common language, often then when you come around to renewals or upsell, champions and economic buyers are sort of dropped off the list. But yeah, you've done a great job around the marketing side, and certainly making sure that for account-based marketing as well, there's lots of good handover that's going on there.
And I think my second piece of guidance is around ensuring that MEDDPICC doesn't just become another tick box exercise in CRM. So, we've embedded MEDDPICC into Salesforce. There is a traffic light system that goes in there. So a very quick glance, you can understand the health of the deal. I think sometimes there can be a risk though of our salespeople feeling like, I've just got to put the information in there, but it shouldn't be. When you're doing a deal review or you're stuck with an opportunity, you're trying to help think of a way forward, MEDDPICC should be the foundation of that strategy. So you should be helping, so when we're doing a deal review internally or with inspir'em, and if we have a retainer, we will be thinking about, okay, MEDDPICC is our quick understanding of where we're at, and it's going to help us inform our strategy about how we're going to progress this forward. So, for us, we have a red, amber, green status against the MEDDPICC letters. If, we've got plenty of green, but we've got one big glaring red object, so that's EBI, that really helps us inform the strategy about how we're going to go and find that stakeholder, engage that stakeholder, get buy-in from that individual that's going to help us get that deal over the line. Or if that's a paper process like we've been talking about, we might, go work with our legal team to see how we can get that function to help us move that forward with that.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's key, making sure that it doesn't just become this text box exercise that reps feel that they've got to fill in for an upcoming deal review or a forecast, or it's really ingrained into deal strategy and how you progress opportunities. And like I said earlier on, it's embedded in your sales process, you know. And I mean, you can sort of capture and make sure that doesn't happen by focusing more on the strategy. And it shouldn't just be you give someone a hard time if MEDDPICC's red or it's not filled in. It should be, you know, let's collaboratively work together to think about how we can move this thing forward using this tool that is MEDDPICC, rather than, you know, giving someone a hard time because it's red.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be part of that coaching culture. And again, you know, you guys have worked very hard on that from your leader's perspective to make sure that the data is an indicator of someone needs help. So let's make sure that we get them the help that they need. Okay, so we've got a few questions that are coming in on the chat. I'm going to smash a couple of questions together, actually, because they're two very similar ones. So you talked a little bit about marketing engagement. And then, so Jen had asked the question around, you know, how did you sort of drive the adoption and get marketing teams engaged? But then also Joe's on the chat as well, asking a question around what happens if people have got other ideas. So like SDRs might use a different qualification methodology like BANT, or actually engaging people like sales engineers as well. So, I mean, so within Redgate, obviously knowing a little bit about the organization, actually you have your sales organization, but actually marketing very much fall outside of that. So how has sales got the other teams involved? How have you pushed that influence into the other teams? How did you get them even to turn up to the MEDDIC training?
So I think it's making sure that you're bringing them along on the journey and you're keeping them involved in the loop. Like we've got a great marketing at Redgate, and they were always naturally curious about the MEDDPICC rollout that we were doing. So that was a good help. So it was, for us, it was luckily we were pulling into it rather than us pushing it onto them. But by, you know, providing training for those functions, like proper day of training for that marketing team, you know, and bringing in salespeople and marketing into those together, that made a really, really big difference. And I think as well, if you can get buy-in from the top, so our CMO, she believes in this framework, she endorses this, and that's helped. So getting sort of exec alignment is important, but also ensuring that you're involved with them wherever you can is super, super important. And on the solution engineering side as well, again, we've trained those functions. Anyone pretty much that's customer facing at Redgate has gone through MEDDPICC training, you know, CSMs, solution engineering, sales. And that's been really, really important for us, you know, gaining adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about making it important and engaging for them around, you know, their day jobs. I remember when we were talking to the marketing team, it was about how do we get a closer alignment between marketing and sales, so that if marketing are doing loads of really great work, the salespeople are using that because they are the customer of marketing to push that information out. We just did some strategic account planning with your teams as well. And again, marketing were involved in that because they wanted to see how they could help, how they could drive more contacts, drive more engagement. I always say to solution engineers or to sales engineers, this is their opportunity to qualify out of opportunity, right? They're the busiest people in any organization. They're usually people pushed the hardest by salespeople. This is a bit of armor for them to push back to make sure that opportunities are really well qualified and they don't become demo dollies. So it's a really great opportunity for them to manage their own time. So getting them involved, making sure that there's inclusive conversations that are going on there, but it starts with the leaders, like we always say. Absolutely starts with the leaders for sure.
I mean, you were briefly discussing personas before this earlier on. You know, sometimes in organizations, marketing might own those personas. You know, it might be product marketing, helping them get MEDDPICC into there. You know, like this type of CTO role might be your EBI in common organizations. Embed it into the persona language as well. But coming back to that question about how do you get those more junior sales roles involved, like BDRs, Emma touched on this earlier on. So at Redgate, we use the MDI, the C. So we don't expect our SDR and BDR teams to do full MEDDPICC qualification when they are, booking meetings or handing over an opportunity. But we do expect them to the MDI and the C. And even if you can really focus on implicated pain, that's valuable and important. You know, like I've always had that slight pushback. So Redgate are often selling process improvement tooling, or we're we might not have budget. So if you put something as rigid as bands in, reduces the amount of new opportunities you're generating from an outbound perspective. Whereas if you can make people pass over conversations that have had, there's some business metrics here that I think we can improve, and there's definitely an indicated pain that we can improve. That makes a massive difference when you've got a purely outbound BDR function. You're not cutting stuff off in using something like band if there's not budget, because the majority of the outbound opportunities we're creating probably don't have budget at that early stage, but we're helping them generate a business case that helps them go and get that budget from the business. So my guidance back to that is, Redgate, we use the MEDDIC for more junior roles. And again, it gets debated constantly. It's been debated this year. Conversations with our global BDR manager recently, Jordan, around, should we be looking at spin or band? And it's like, look, for the career progression for our BDR function, getting them using MEDDIC for MEDDIC now is going to make their transition into future account executives or institution doers much easier after them, rather than relearning a new qualification framework and change jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, in a lot of cases, you're selling against the do nothing option. So, likelihood of there being any budget there, anybody thinking they should be spending money on this, the answer to that is no. And that, like you say, it makes the job a lot harder for these young kids that are coming in that are doing these early stage roles. So if we talk to them about value-based selling, about creating value, about handing over those opportunities, they're much more likely in the future to make something out of nothing, rather than just trying to sell to a competitor that already exists. Okay, great. It's amazing how time flies in minutes. So I'm going to ask you a really quick question that came through on the Q&A, which was, for an organization get started, I'm going to make you pick one letter that you think is the most important letter to get started with. Where would you begin, Sam, if you had your time again?
So for us, the most important thing at the time for us was metric. So as I talk, as we're going on this journey from, quite transactional sales to much larger deal values, multiple stakeholder, more complex buyer groups, the metric was super important to help us qualify if this is something that we can actually get a business case for, we can get organization or buy-in. So for us, that metric piece was so important because we were really bad at it. We had lots of great sellers that were really technical sellers, could really quickly understand the pain our customers were facing, but they were struggling at the time to understand the business case, the commercial metrics for why would anyone actually do this. So for me, the metric has been and still is the most important letter, and it's often the most challenging to get, for us, but it's the one that's most important, makes the biggest difference to things like forecast actually and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the team have worked really hard on creating those discovery questions to be able to get those great metrics as well. So that's great. Thanks very much. Well, we're pretty much out of time. And so thank you so much, Sam, for joining us today. And really great to see you. And thanks for sharing your thoughts and tips. So some of those tips will be going out on the platform and also on social media. So for people who have missed those, we'll get those out to people. And the recording will be available for everybody as well. So thanks very much for your time. And to everybody else that's joined the session today, go in, have a look at the new platform, have a look at some of the other recordings, some other great tips from leaders from last week from Nilo and Hannah. So definitely go back and have a look at those as well. But thanks very much, Sam. And I'll speak to you soon. Thanks very much.
See ya.
Thank you.